Oh man, there is nothing finer than being behind the wheel of your own car. Except maybe for push. Hi, this is Trev. Welcome to my blog. Welcome to part 9 of my Bedford CA van restoration. Got a bit heavy in the last part, so I thought I'd lighten it up with a bit of nonsense at the start. Where are we? Well, I've got the shell off the van at the moment, so it looks a little bit like this. Yes, so anyway, I wanted to wrap up this steering blog for people because a couple of people have said, come on matey, let's see the last bit, we want to know how it all turns out. I've looked back through some videos and I've actually shot some video I forgot I'd taken, so I think I've got enough I can cobble it together so you can see how it turns out. You know, it hasn't got to be that special, has it? At least you get the idea. First I'll show you this clip, how I made my steering column. Before I finalise the steering column, I thought I'd do this quick video just to show what I've done and why I've done what I've done to the steering column. So originally the van was a steering box affair with this recirculating ball system at the bottom in the actual box. So at the end of the internal shaft to the steering column, this was one solid shaft all the way down, and then this was on the end originally. Now this recirculating ball system had two bushes at each end which were immersed in oil, so they didn't have to have dry bearings. This stopped the shaft from moving up and down. Now it needed to be fixed also because at the steering wheel end we've got a compressed spring pushing a tapered bush into the bearing. Now what this did is this rigidly held this shaft in the top of the steering column in here. There's a little bearing inside there. That bush fits inside that bearing, and this spring keeps it compressed to stop there from being any play. This posed a problem because this shaft is constantly going to be under some kind of sprung pressure, and like I said earlier, this was fixed stopping it from going one way or the other, so I needed quite a special bearing on the end. What I've ended up doing is utilising my donor car steering column bearing off the Ford Focus, because it's got this heavily sprung bearing. It's so stiff when this disc is under pressure inside its carrier. This prevents this shaft from moving up and down. This tiny spring on the end won't affect it. Then what I've done, this hollow piece here, I've actually passed the shaft right through this hollow piece and it comes out the other end. And then what I've done is I've taken a Corsa B steering column apart and utilised some parts off that. So this would be off the Corsa B column. This fits inside of here. What I've done, just for some extra safety, is it's sleeved. I'm going to weld it round, so that's sleeved in there. Weld it round, then I've drilled 8mm holes right through, and I'll put some high strength steel bar through there and weld that in as well, just so there's no chance of it coming adrift. And then that fits onto that steering joint. Happy days. This is the casing off the original Focus column. Just this inner part here is the casing. I've made this up out of scrap parts, and this holds this bearing securely. Biggest problem I had is the original shaft was great big banana bend in the middle of it, so it was all wobbling around all over the place. Of course it didn't matter before because you've only had a bearing right on the very end, didn't matter what the shaft was doing in the middle. but now it's needs to be a bit more accurate, so I had to spend some time straightening this bar out because it just locked the bearing solidly. And the other issue I had was getting this housing so that it was ran true to the outer CA column, which was a bit of an effort, but I got there in the end and it seems to work quite nicely. And this is what the steering column looked like when it was assembled. Okay, so this is the finished steering column. You can see it spins nice and freely. There's the end finished, welded up. And these little ears are to bolt it to the bulkhead. Okay, so you've seen the steering column assembled. What I did next was to fit it to the van, and then what I needed to do was get where the steering column exited through the bulkhead. I needed to get it to the rack, which was by the side of the engine. How the hell am I going to do that? There's absolutely no way with just two UJs that you can get it to go that distance. They're just going to lock up. So I realised that somehow I had to split these two couplings up with some mounted bearing in the middle to stop them from waggling around. So I was at a local breaker's yard looking for some inspiration, and there was an old 1989 Toyota Hiace, and with the front wheels set right back behind the driver, I would have said, you know, right behind the seat. So I thought, well, how the heck do they get the steering all the way back there? So I had a look underneath and found something. I thought, I'm having that. There's this. So you have it fixed to the chassis leg, which it was on the Toyota, and I've done just the same, but I've had to bury it inside the leg and make a lot of strengthening and stuff. Don't want anything breaking free on steering, do we? So you have your input shaft coming from your steering wheel on the one, and it outputs the other, holds it still, and you can see how beneficial this could be to the kind of thing I've had to do. The other interesting thing is actually a reducer box as well, and because the Corsa steering that I've used is 2.6 turns from lock to lock, it's a little bit quick for the old van, which should be 4, and because this reduces the ratio, I've ended up with a 3.5 turns from lock to lock, so it's not far away from what the original van would have been. My only real concern is, because it's a powered steering rack as well, and this is going to reduce so it's actually going to make it even easier to turn the steering wheel. Will it be a little bit on the light side? Obviously I'm not going to know until I drive the van and find out. If it is a little bit too light, what I could do is, I was thinking I could buy a manual steering rack, because the manual and the powered steering rack should fit the same housing I've made, and I could just fit a manual steering rack, which would make it heavier than the powered unit that I fitted. That was Doctor Who. Yes, Doctor Who. So fortunately, I have found a little bit of video that I shot before I took it all apart again and started taking the shell off. So I thought, oh, well, just get it done. So here's the video of it finished. One more thing really worth mentioning is that I've braced from where the steering rack exits the bulkhead. I've braced it from there to the chassis, because there's quite a lot of body flex I've noticed between the CA and the chassis in this area, and because there's rather sensitive UJs on the steering couplings, you don't want those stressed in any way, so I've put a brace there so there's no way that they can get stressed at all. I'd just like to say a quick thanks to a guy called Andrew Thomas that contacted me a couple of weeks ago now. Thanks, Andrew, for your advice and your help. Really, really appreciated. And I've gonna build some of your ideas into the van as well. So thanks for that, mate. That's really appreciated. So catch me in the next part where I'm going to fit my Focus brakes master cylinder to the old van. Catch you then.